Call this, you ready, guys? I call this Hildebran Town Council meeting to order. We have quite a crowd outside, I think. But we will begin with a moment of silence.
I think we might have
Thank you. All right, Derek, your lead us. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, review your agenda and make a motion when you're ready.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
All right, and we will do it by roll call.
Yes.
Okay, I'll call it for a vote.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes.
Terry, yeah.
Derek, yes.
Dan, yes.
All right, thank you. Approval of minutes from our June 2021 special meeting minutes and June 28, 2021 regular meeting minutes. Look over those and make a motion when you're ready.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
All right, I'll call it for a vote.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes.
Terry, yes.
Derek, yes.
Dan, yes.
Okay, number 5, structural engineer review and architectural review of the tower, SKA Engineering.
Okay, Chris, we have you on.
Great. Good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Bathgates. I'm with SKA Structural Engineers. Hopefully you all see my report. And as I understand it, we're going to go through the report kind of section by section and then ask questions, at the end of each section or, I guess as they come up. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I guess let me start with just like a little bit of introduction, I guess. So there's kind of some main areas of the tower that we're kind of concerned with, and one of the main parts are this idea of a change of use. And actually, I should have actually said there's actually a change of occupancy classification. So every building, when they get a certificate of occupancy, gets a certain classification. And if you have to change that, there are special rules in the existing building code that you have to follow. So I just wanted to provide that kind of a little bit as a background as we get into this report. I'll kind of cover that a little bit more. So, I guess the first things first is that obviously this the tower, which I think is, by the way, I think one of the reasons why I took on this project was because I thought this tower was pretty cool. I really did kind of come into this project hoping that I would have a different outcome than what I was going to recommend. But so the first thing I look at this tower is under an occupancy category. Originally, it was part of a much larger structure. Obviously, that structure was damaged. And so now to take a look at this structure as a standalone building, it has to comply with the existing building code. So it's undergone a pretty significant change. And that existing building provided it some additional shielding from wind and additional support from lateral forces. So, and if you look at the inside, there's even been some changes since the original construction of what it was intended for. I believe it was at one point it wasn't always there, and that has been changed. So it's undergone from its original construction, when it was originally permitted, it's undergone a lot of changes, and the conditions are different because of that. So, so it's in that regard, studying the code and taking a look at it, if I'm trying to find ways that we could make this work, is that really what we concluded in a nutshell was that this was too significant of a change for this structure to be analyzed as, or basically to be compliant under the existing building code. It's no longer a school, right? So that was its existence. That was the original occupancy classification. Now it would probably be classified as an area of assembly because it's got a recreational, be more like a recreational use. So you got the process under the existing building code, as I understand it, is that you would actually have to go to the authority having jurisdiction, which I believe is at the county level, and you would have to submit for a change of occupancy classification, change of use. And they would or would not have, approve it. And so I will say that my interpretation, my firm's interpretation of the code is that this is a pretty obvious change. It represents an increase in hazard. It represents a change in stress and change in configuration from how it was originally done. So as far as we're concerned, regardless of what the county might classify this, we are not comfortable moving this forward as an unretrofitted building. So to be compliant, this building would have to be brought up to the standards of the current building code as far as the structural capacity is concerned, in our opinion, which would basically mean that it would either have to be retrofitted or reinforced in some manner so that it would be code compliant. So let's pause here and see if anybody has any questions or any follow-up on that.
What would the retrofitting involve? Could you describe it a little bit?
Yeah, what we have done in other buildings that were unreinforced masonry is that we retrofitted, and I'm not saying this is how we would do this one, but we have basically input a steel support structure that would add ductility and provide all your lateral bracing and supplement even maybe some of the gravity load pack. And then we would basically anchor that into the brick so that the brick really didn't have to take a lot of lateral loads or other loads that it would, have to do otherwise. So we would, again, it could be a steel frame, or we could do exterior bonded reinforcing. So steel could be a series of steel plates. We'd have to take a look at it and see what was the best fit. Might even be a combination of the two. But basically what we'd be looking to do is take the lateral forces out of this system by transferring it into some sort of supplemental system, which again, could be steel, could be possibly concrete, although that would change the look of things. So, but even steel's gonna have a steel frame, would change the look of things. So, but anyway, that's what we would try to do. We try to come up with a way to get ductility and reinforcement into the structure.
So I wanted to clarify, you're talking about external bracing and all of this stuff, right? Like all this retrofitting you're talking about is going to be on the exterior of the building, not on the interior.
Well, it could be on the interior as well. I guess it wouldn't be, we couldn't put it, we'd probably be unlikely to be able to put it inside of the wall because of the way it's configured. So yeah, when I said external to the actual, sorry, I'm being an engineer, external to the building structure, but you're right. It would probably actually be on the interior, so that obviously on the exterior it would look even worse. But we'd probably try to put it inside the interior. So say like, for instance, it might be a series of tubes with lateral bracing and frame, built within the existing tower, and then we would attach to it and break it, numerous locations.
So we kind of have like an external bird cage around it.
Yeah, that's one, again, we haven't been through it, but yeah, that would be a reasonable way of approach if it met all the requirements. So, and I think we could do it that way.
Does council have any other questions at this point, or we want to move on?
Keep on going.
Okay, we're good to move on.
All right, so as we just discussed, retrofitting is a possibility. Again, say for instance, the birdcage kind of idea, and then probably that would also involve, we'd have to take the forces all the way down, so it may even involve some foundation retrofit if you were to go that. It's obviously a pretty big deal. You can kind of picture how difficult it is to build a birdcage inside an existing structure and a footing inside, existing structure. We got to take, parts out to get parts in. You drop a tube column in, you probably need to punch the roof so that you can get the stick all the way down to the ground. So anyway, if you were to go that route, it's tough. It's expensive, and you really got to think, especially with a historic structure, about how you can accomplish these things without doing damage to, the structure you're trying to save. And that sort of kicks into, the next section, because it's if you go to the the occupancy classification, and this is where the architect really, he would need to kind of do, he'd have to do a compliance report. So this is a little bit, this section 2 part is a little bit out of my element. It's really more, fall into the architect's purview because I'm a structural engineer. I don't want to be putting words in other people's mouths or anything, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention that this really should be something that's included. In the event you do decide to bring this up to code compliance, there's going to be an architectural piece that would go along with the change in occupancy classification, and whether or not ADA compliance would be necessary. He would probably need to present some information on how he's done, safety compliance and dealt with any of the unsafe conditions that they may or may not be able to address because it's a historic building. You can't always get where you need to go, but you can't always make it ADA compliant if it would negatively affect the building. It's just not feasible. I'm having a hard time thinking of an example of this, but if you had a door opening that was structurally just couldn't make it wider and it wasn't ADA compliant, then you come up with a way to figure out how you get around that, and maybe an alternate entrance or something along those lines. But anyway, we've seen that before with ramps in other buildings where you just it was an old building that had a steep ramp and you just not feasible to get it right grade for ADA compliance. So you got to kind of address those sorts of things. But really what you guys are probably most concerned with is then, I took a look at what's the condition of this tower. So I approached this, kind of as if it was a completely separate issue than code compliance. So just took a look at it. I call it, having the structure talk to you. So, I just went around, I'm looking at, what kind of condition it's in and, what it's been through. And, like I said, I kind of say, it talks back to you. So it's in trouble. It's old. You guys know it's old. It's over 100 years old. The exterior surfaces that have been exposed to the weather, you're starting to get a lot of deterioration of the mortar joints, and this is totally normal. This is, after about 75 years or so, you start to see this, is that the lime soft mortar that they used, way back in the day, had a high lime content, and over time it just erodes. And it was built that way. It was designed that way. They wanted the mortar to be sacrificial to the brick. And so really the fact that it's over 100 years now and you haven't really had to do a major tuck pointing initiative on this is, it's actually not a bad sign. It held up fairly well. But it is at the point where it's starting to pass a lot of moisture into these joints because the mortar joints have gotten old. So it really needs more than, it needs a lot of work. You really need to do an extensive repointing and retucking of the building. And if it were, again, this is all under the guise that it was legally habitable. So if you're going to keep the structure, you didn't have to do anything else to it. We would say you got to redo these mortar joints and get the structure sound, because that's really what it relies on. So tuck pointing, there's some at the base of the structure. I couldn't exactly tell what the foundation was, but I was thinking that there's a possibility that it might have been field stone, or it might have been some large stone and they mortared in between, and so that mortar is gone over these years. But now that we've changed the grade around it, that would be an area that would need to be addressed. We've got to protect that lower foundation from erosion, because you've got kind of a sloping grade against there, and whatever that old foundation is might be susceptible to more erosion. You've also got areas of the building that used to be interior to the school that are now exposed to the elements, and those joints weren't. They weren't ever exposed. They weren't handled in a manner to keep them weather tight. And so those areas, you need a qualified person to go in there and kind of redo those areas to get that area stable. You could work that into, if you were to do a tuck point initiative, you would work that in. Same thing with the end walls, where the end walls have been saw cut. Something would need to be done there. More than what had been done. A contractor currently, and I talked a little bit about that in a minute. But you've got several things in that building that have experienced deterioration that would need to be addressed.
I've got a question there.
Sure.
So you're talking about the slope, the new grading on the backside, and in your report, you're talking about some wall separation. Can
Yes.
you expand on the wall separation as far as the location? I think there was actually two different ones you were talking about as far as what side of the building those are happening on, and then also that low grade slope in the back. When it comes to the foundation, is that hurting the building in the situation that it's at right now? And do we think some of that separation could be from that new slope, or will that accelerate it?
Oh, great question. So as far as accelerating it, it certainly won't help it. That we can definitely say is that we definitely do not want to have compromised foundation support for that main strings. It'll definitely show up quickly, extenuating the cracking. So the open joints, and the building was actually detailed to have as far as I can tell, it was detailed to have a joint at that location. So none of the joints were laid in running bond. They both stopped, and it was basically like it was a 90-degree angle, but they didn't pass anything through that joint. And it was probably, I don't know exactly why they did it that way, but it was, when it was part of a much larger school, it may have been more obvious why they had chose to have a joint there. But so one of them is in I believe it's the southeast corner of the building. It's sort of that area that used to be a stair, and then I It's right in the corner. And the second one, and that's sort of that rectangular piece that's on the backside of the tower. That might be clearer. It's in the backside of the tower in one of those corners, opposite the door. That now has a steel kind of gate on it. The second one is inside the main part of the tower itself, on that same side of the building. And it's one of those, octagonal corners that come together. And again, they just, for whatever reason, opted to do a butt joint at that location. So they were tight. At one point, you can kind of see where the plaster detailing had come, and you can see that, okay, at one point, these things, when it was constructed and held together by the remainder of the school, was probably a very tight gap. And I don't know when, but I can say that in its current state is that joint appears to be opening.
So just to clarify, it sounds like both of the separations you're talking about, if you're in the parking lot looking at the building with the school behind it, it sounds like it's on the right side of the building.
Actually, the left side of the building.
The left side towards the auditorium?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a gym to the left. If you're facing the tower, there's a gym to the left. Can't remember what it's called. It's a separate building.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it would be on that side. Both the joints are on that side of the building. And if you go into it, you would be able to identify it pretty quick. It's pretty consistent vertical crack that goes on up. And if you have a jackknife or a pen, you can stick it in there. You can pretty much chase it up. Might have to knock a couple pieces of plaster out of the way, but you can see that it's deep and it's consistent.
Any other questions so far by council? Okay, we'll move on.
Okay. So in addition to them, so again, that was kind of a summary of like, this is what we would recommend if the structure could be used as a standalone structure and did not need any other supplemental reinforcement. Basically, you have to do some things to that just to bring it up to snuff to make it stable. So we got to take care of the mortar. You got to basically reconstitute some of this capacity, and maybe need to address some of the issues that we see with that butt joint now that it's now that the tower is not surrounded by something. You might need to stitch that together, and that might be something you can do inside the wall. But anyway, those were things that you definitely needed to address. So then the third main item that I was looked at was, okay, take a look at and give some of feedback on the construction that had been done to date. And so I received a copy of the drawings, and so I took a look at some of the things that have been done, and I had some issues with things that were done, and I understand and want to fully disclose that my understanding is that the contractor was not done with his work. But I wanted to go through and if something had not been completed, demo the wall, the interior wall was something that had been called out on the drawings, and it may or may not have been done, and there were some addendums. But so on this part of the report, I basically just wanted to comment on what was going on with the construction. And probably the biggest flag was that it certainly appeared that the contractor was using a modern mortar to initiate some of the repairs on this building. And that's not a good idea, and can actually probably very quickly result in damage. So those, as I mentioned before, you have a really soft lime mortar that worked well with these old bricks that were, they're not, in a gas-fired kiln like they would be modern times. They're, big beehive and then starting a fire on the inside of it. Anyway, the brick is also very soft, and they're also have a tendency to take in a lot more moisture. They're more absorptive. So they undergo a lot more volume change than a modern brick. So when you go back in to do a repair on these types of structures, that you really have to match the consistency and material properties of the existing mortar. And if you want to try to reuse the brick, hopefully you have a good supply of the brick, because tore down a large section of the school. So, and there were salvage brick on site. So you want to go back in with compatible materials. And if what happens is, if you use a modern mortar in there, what happens is you get a hard point. And when that brick goes to, when it absorbs water and it goes to expand, right, it's surrounded by this new hard mortar, and it can't do its thing. And so it ends up cracking, and then very quickly, now you've actually damaged the brick, and more moisture is getting in, and anyway, it just exacerbates the cycle. So these repairs have a tendency they damage the brick, and then also and then the mortar itself doesn't hold up. So you really need to get somebody who has really specializes in these kinds of repairs, because they really are. Again, it's not something you see every day. There aren't a lot of these historic structures that are getting repaired, but you do need to get a specialist involved to initiate these kind of repairs. So let's see what else. There are a couple other small things that I noticed, other than the tuck pointing. The crawl space. There's an area underneath that old slab section that kind of protrudes from the back of the building. It used to be the stairs. There's a void space underneath there. That has all been enclosed now. And where they had enclosed that, if you tap on the wall, it's hollow. So I didn't like the mortar anyway, so it's probably all, I would say it really needs to come out anyway. But when those bricks were laid, they weren't laid in a manner where they became composite. So basically, they laid it in there as separate whites, and so it's not bonded between the brick. And the way this building works, it's got these header courses that lock all three whites of the brick together so that it acts as a unit. And so when you lay them in, you got to really make sure that you've got all your joint spacing very well done, and that the brick is pre-wetted, that it lays in there so that you get solid composite action between all of the different layers of the brick. And I would also say is that, usually, especially in an old structure like this, you want this brick to be able to breathe. So the structure needs to be able to breathe. And so, you probably want access, and you probably want a little bit of airflow going through that void space. And you'd be better off in the long run if you could have access back underneath there to monitor things. Again, to let that, if there's any moisture that accumulates in there, give it a chance for that moisture to come out so that the whole structure can breathe and dry out from all faces.
Any questions at this point? Or we're going to keep going? I think we're good to keep going.
Okay. There was something I noticed on the drawings. Like, again, I hate to beat somebody up, but anyway, the lattice seal. Basically, a sealant was called out to be applied to this structure, and the Brick Institute of America is not. They're not big on. They have yet to find a system that really works well to restore old buildings. That, without doubt, they'd say mortar joints. So what you got to do is do the mortar joints, and that these sealers, they can be, again, just like that, using the wrong kind of mortar, using a very modern, high-strength mortar can cause problems. This is the same sort of thing where you can actually, you can end up trapping moisture. Even though these things are sort of supposedly breathable and everything, they don't perform well. This lava seal will not bridge cracks. So, anyway, the sealant itself can get in the way of quality repair. And so it's kind of like sort of like throwing money away as far as the Brick Institute is concerned. And I would say that, again, the condition, there are so many holes in so many areas of this structure that, again, if you could keep it, I just went around where I could stick my knife, and I could stick my knife into this thing more than a brick deep and all over the place. It really needs a lot of work, and just slapping on a sealant is not going to get it done. It's just not going to get you where you need to go. I sort of feel like I've covered all the big things. There was a couple of construction details again that I wasn't keen on. You can't really use a flat laid pressure treated 2x4 as a lintel in brick masonry. So again, that you need a steel lintel to hold up. Something that's not going to deflect. But again, it's sort of beside the point, because at the end of the day is that.
Well, and we're talking about above the outer portion that got the black railing, the doorway, basically where the old restroom was.
Yeah.
So we're talking about one. I'm just sitting here doing rough numbers in my head. We're probably upwards of at least $250,000 or more, correct? And that's just estimating numbers. I mean, we don't know what that's going to be until we get in there, but to get it to where we're talking. So if we get all this up to code, how many can it occupy if you spent that kind of money?
So on the previous drawings we have, there was 301 square feet, and you had to have, one person per 100 feet.
So about three people.
Well, yeah, and so if you don't demo the wall, you probably got a nice occupancy of 3.
As far as if we get this up to code, let's say we fixed everything, what type of routine maintenance or whatever's going to have to be done to this? Because obviously we're dealing with old brick, old mortar. Even if we do whatever needs to be done, like, is there any type of routine maintenance that would go into this?
Thank you for asking that. Yes, there is. You'll be doing routine maintenance on this on a regular basis. I would probably say, like, you probably want it, looked at every few years, and I would expect that, you'll be chasing mortar joints in this structure for the remainder of its use. Actually, honestly, I'm a rescue engineer with the state of North Carolina. We go out with the Urban Search and Rescue Task Forces. There's 15 of us, and the most common injury after an event is something falling from a building, and this building is ready to have someone. The biggest danger, I think personally, is that a brick is going to come off and hit someone, and the way you got to stop that is you got to make sure that all the brick are secured in place. So it's a big structure, and it's going to need to be looked at again, like on a regular basis, and then repaired. So
when you're saying that we'd have to have this looked at every few years, can you quantify that? Like, are we talking every 2, 5, 20? Like, how frequently would you suggest?
It's sort of, part of it will depend on how the restoration goes and the level of the restoration. But I'm just swagging it now. I'd take an educated guess. I'd probably say like 5 years, you would probably need to spend, several $1,000s, $3,000 to $5,000 with a qualified mason going around and identifying the worst areas and repairing those. And that would probably continue again for the remaining life of the structure.
So I guess, going back to my question a while ago, I guess you don't have a ballpark. Of course, there's no way to quote this. I think because the work we've just had done didn't help it any either, because it looks like it's, we've got more loose brick than we had before.
Well, it needs everything that was, all the repairs that were done, if you're gonna keep it, and again, it's cool. It's a cool tower. If you need to keep it, all that stuff needs to come out, and you need to go back in with, you take a sample of the mortar or a couple samples of the mortar, and you actually get it tested for its constituents. So you can go back in with a mortar. There's a few companies that do this. We'll go back in with a special mortar that you would use then to handle the joints. And, we try to repurpose the brick, any extra brick. You've got some extra wing walls and stuff that you don't need, so even if you had to, you could take it out of some of those, maybe reduce some of those wing walls, because it kind of ends with you to get rebuilt anyway. But yeah.
You mentioned
I would expect a bird cage approach to be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I would expect a thorough retucking detail on this building to probably be between $100,000 and $200,000.
On top of that, correct?
Yeah, so even if you did the bird cage, you still need to fix the brick. And so I would say, yeah, you're probably talking in the,
$350,
you're
range.
approaching $400,000 probably.
That's what I had wrote down. Go ahead.
you was talking about, I'm sorry.
It really would be, I don't mean that you should, I don't have the emotional attachment to this, but it would honestly be better to tear it down and rebuild it as a reinforced structure using the same brick and put it back in the same shape. That would be compliant. You could do it for less than half that probably. But again, it's just unfortunate. I just use that example because it's like new structure is so much easier to deal with, and you don't have, and you would have 75 years where you really don't have to do anything to it. If you could just pull it off, that's the end. But that's the thing with history is that that you got to take care of it.
Mike, you had a question?
Yeah, you just mentioned the low roof framing was modified, and the existing high roof framing was not demolished and replaced. Was both of those have to be replaced?
Yes.
Both roofs?
Yes. Based off of what I could see, yes. So it looks like he changed the framing layout. It was actually logical. I just pointed it out that it was different because he probably had an existing beam pocket that he was looking to go back into, and the depth of the wood members were not kind of with what worked well with what was there before. But yes, he did change that, and then you're absolutely right on the upper roof framing that had been called to be demoed. That was left in place, and but there was, you could see that there had been some strengthening of at least one of the members that the remainder part of that roof remained in place.
So the wall that was in the drawing that was supposed to have been demoed but was not, if that's taken out, that's not going to do anything to help the stability, correct?
Yes, I mean every part of the structure that's there is helping it, especially with those joints. As I said, those two open joints. So yeah, everything that bridges those two walls is pretty important to keep it together. Because it doesn't have, it used to have a whole bunch of school on both sides of it that isn't there anymore. So now everything that's in there is helping to hold it together.
And then to your point about the mortar joints, that unless, the way it sounds to me is unless we take every brick out and relay every single brick from scratch, that we're gonna be chasing those mortar joints, that's gonna be something that's gonna allow moisture, have problems, separation,
It doesn't go away.
especially with the unknown situation with the foundation, correct?
Yes, now I will clarify that not every brick, they will, depending on the condition of the mortar, they will go in a certain depth. And, now if they go in a certain depth and it's still loose and, they'll take the whole brick out, but not necessarily, I just want to clarify, it's not necessarily every brick has to come out. It does mean that most of the surface mortar that you see, the first probably inch, probably all of that ends up coming out. But if they hit something good behind that, then they won't mess with that. They'll just do the outer, like I said, 1 inch or so if they're into something solid. If it's
But
not
you're saying
solid, then they'll.
But you're saying the retucking point is gonna have to be very extensive, just in the current condition it's in right now.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you think about how many linear feet of mortar joint in the structure, and I should say this too. I should say if it's solid, then they won't replace it. So that's the other thing is like if they find an area that is confident and it has not eroded, then they will leave that. So I don't know exactly. There's a lot of deep repair in here because, like I said, if I can put my jackknife in all the way up to the hill, then that's a lot of mortar that needs to come out and go back in. So it's hard to tell, especially on the upper levels, which are probably. I mean, if I had to guess, that they'd be worse at the upper levels because they'd had even more exposure. But it's hard to quantify until you start getting in there and find that, you start to get, after a while, they'll kind of get a feel for it. Since I haven't even been able to get up to that top, it's hard to say. But it's not necessarily every brick, but a lot of them.
Well, I've got one last question for you. So more important than money, I think what this council is concerned about is the safety of people in and around that building. And especially considering that tower is going to be kind of a focal point to a park around it. We have events in that parking lot. We have the gym, the auditorium. There's a lot of people that are around it. In its current condition, what is your level that you feel comfortable with telling us about safety, considering everything that you mentioned, wall separation, unknown foundation, what can you kind of guide us on the safety aspect of this building right now?
Sure. Well, the general rule is 1.5 times the height. And that is whether or not you've got a brick that comes loose or if the tower itself collapses. So that would be the perimeter. I would say that's the safe perimeter at this current point is 1.5 times its height.
In terms of feet.
Yeah, that you shouldn't allow the public inside of that area.
That's the fall zone.
That's right.
So you're recommending right now that we don't let public within 1.5 times the height of that?
Yes, we know we have loose brick that could come out at any time. And you never know when, earthquakes do happen. Not that there's been a major one around, so I don't want to overstress that. But when they do happen, even mild shaking for this structure in its current condition it's a real hazard. It wouldn't take a lot to get this building moving, and again, you could have pieces of it coming off. Well, you can pull pieces of it off with your hands, so you can see where there are pieces of it that have fallen off recently. So yeah, right in its current configuration, just to say it needs help before it would be stable, even if the wind and the earth weren't ever going to affect it.
Okay.
there any other questions right now, council members? Okay, Chris, I appreciate you for coming by and giving the, or not coming by, but calling in. Again, we do apologize for the canceled meetings, but, yeah, I think that's all council has right now.
Gotcha. That's the new normal. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Sorry I couldn't meet everybody in person, but I hope I've been helpful.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, next we have public comments. Yes, papers out there.
Okay, we'll start with public comment.
Yeah, sign up sheet.
Is Jeremy Chapman?
Take your name down here, please.
As long as everybody stays awake. Jeremy Chapman, 3435 Evans Drive, College Springs, North Carolina, 28612.
No, we're gonna set the microphone, we're better.
Okay, thank you.
And lean into the microphone, so everybody can hear you.
I've got no problem. Okay. When does my time start?
Right now.
All right. Basically, all I heard was a lot of what ifs, maybes, this and that. So I would say the second opinion might be a little wise if you go to the doctor, you need a second opinion on things. Didn't sound like a whole lot had been investigated. Also, I don't understand the reason of everything all of a sudden just need to be gone. I think there's a couple people that own a lot of land right around this area, Hildebran, adjoining. So I guess somebody has something to gain by whatever they want to do after the mysterious fire and snap. Let's see. I guess I'm hoping none of y'all live in a house older than 75 years old. Because it sounds like it's not safe. Or have any trees close by that you can walk around. I don't know. Just aggravating. Pretty pathetic, sad. What's happened over the last couple of years here as far as the town of Hildebran. I don't really see much for people to be proud of because every time you're on the news, it's something to do with this dog and pony show that keeps going around and around with this. See, here in Burton Times, y'all think of something else, I guess. Really unprepared since I only saw the meeting was going to happen about an hour before I left work. So, I guess I should have my agenda ready. But it's pretty sad. That's all I can say. I would suggest a second opinion, third opinion.
You have 40 more seconds.
Okay, thank you.
Is Cindy Elliott?
Name and address, please, ma'am.
My name's Sandy Elliott, 8445 Reddish Road, Common Springs. First thing I want to say before I start is, there's a lot of people that would be here tonight that wait for COVID. They're quarantined or they are sick, and we need to remember every one of them. Okay, my name is Sandy Douglas Elliott. I'm not a resident of Hildebran, but I am a proud Roy, class of 74. My first question is, why was this issue not, if the tower is or not safe, structurally safe, not settled before the HHD raised the money to match the town's contribution for necessary repairs on the tower? Royals from 9 different states and also from Germany have proudly purchased a tower from HHDA, knowing that they could have a small part in saving the tower. I have a copy of an article from Coach Ruggles about Hildebran losing their identity if the school, including the tower, was torn down. Well, we lost our school, so now we need to do all we can to preserve this tower. I have copies of the article for the ones of you that have never read it. Why can this not be voted on by the Hildebran citizens since they pay all city taxes? In my opinion, the town council has bigger problems than the tower. How many other occupied buildings are not up to code? How many sidewalks around the town are not safe for people to run or walk on? Your focus should be on helping the town grow and prosper, bringing in new people and businesses, not doing everything you can to tear it apart. Leave our tower alone. And here's the article if anybody'd like to read it. I wrote a handful of copies. I figured y'all's all too young to know Coach Rebels. I was Tom Renee.
Tell me what to start. Just state your name and address. You got 3 minutes.
My name is Matthew Johnson. My address is 439 Windy Road in Boone.
Okay, time starts now.
Okay. In a previous, he just mentioned change of use. When I did the drawing on the appendix B, which is a code document, the use is utility. So as far as Burke County building inspection is right now, this building is permitted as utility. That's what they know it as, that's what it's permitted as. I'd like to go to your engineer's report. The last line recommends that you hire a structural engineer to get a structural analysis. On October 28th of 2020, 9 months ago, Logan Shook sent me an email that an architect wouldn't confirm this building. I responded to him that he should engage a structural engineer. I gave him the name of a structural engineer, Taylor & Bob, gave him the phone number of structural engineer, 828-327-6331. I gave him the contact person of the structural engineer. He said the job was at a stop because of that. Since it was at a stop because of that, had we engaged a structural engineer to do a structural analysis of the building, to review it 9 months ago, we wouldn't be sitting here today going through any of this. Thank you.
Thank you. State your name and address, please.
My name is Joe Hartman. My address is 4980 Carolina Mill Road, Hickory, North Carolina,
Time starts now.
28602. Thank you.
Got 3 minutes now.
Okay, I'm with Lael Builders. I just wanted to talk to the council this evening, and sort of review what's going on here. We received a certificate of substantial completion from Mackie Johnson on June the 2nd, and subsequently we turned in an invoice, fully expecting that we would have some punch list items. That's the normal progress. We didn't receive a list of items, at least not formally. And so until June the 23rd, when the council met and we got a cease and desist order, so we weren't allowed back on the project. So then we got a punch list. So we knew what we needed to fix, but under penalty of law, we weren't allowed on site. So fast forward to the next council meeting, in which you voted not to pay us until the structural integrity of the building was verified. And that had literally nothing to do with the contract documents that we had. Mackey recommended, again, he just said this, that you get a structural engineer back in October, and he voted not to procure one. Based on all this, we felt it necessary to seek legal help. And your lawyer contacted ours and said that no payment shall be made until the project has been sufficiently completed in accordance with the contract documents. Please keep in mind that we were warned that if we entered the site, we would be escorted off by the sheriff's department. So it's a difficult thing to accomplish a punch list when we're not allowed on site. So from our perspective, if you will allow us back on, I'd be glad to finish it. If not, we would have to resort to litigation. Thank you.
Debbie Greenhill.
Just state your name and address and your time will start.
I'm Debbie Greenhill, a town resident at 320 South Center Street and a taxpayer for 41 years. I'm not a part of any group and I'm not running for anything, been told what to say or paid to be here. I do not know if my voice will make any difference to the town council in your voting decisions, but I do believe my voice does matter. Banners are up throughout the town of Hildebran. If we look closely and can read the banners, they say, honor the past and build for the future. To honor the past means to regard with great respect, support a cause that means something to your heart and to theirs and to your heart. Make a tribute, give a donation, or create a living reminder and live your best. Build for the future, new progress, going forward. Yes, that is great, and I'm all for it. The new will someday be the past too. We need to maintain our entire town, the old, the past, the new, the future. Our buildings, parking lots, streets, sidewalks, signs, and parks. Yes, we can tear down the past, but tell me please, how will that honor the past or the future going forward? I ask each of you, Mayor, Town Council, Manager, to walk down the streets of South Center Street from the gym to the stoplight at I-40. Also go down to the main street down here at Fry Daddy's and go up the street to the stoplight. And right there in front of Dr. Fish's office, there's a drop-off and there's no handrail. Go ahead, walk the entire town. My great appreciation to residents and businesses who try to keep trash and weeds off the sidewalks in front of their properties. But this does not take care of the issues we have with our sidewalks. If you think the new sidewalk at the tower is unsafe and the tower is unstable, and put a fence around the tower, block the entrance and the parking to all the adjoining buildings, you're going to need a lot of orange cones, fencing, yellow safety tape to protect the pedestrians walking on our sidewalks. Our sidewalks have cracks, holes, rocks, weeds, trash. Areas have drop-offs over 15 inches. A lot of our areas are completely gone. A double standard. If you do not shut down these sidewalks and do proper repairs before someone gets seriously hurt.
30 seconds.
New sidewalks, please. New sidewalks, I am all for it, but the town needs to maintain the existing sidewalks first. For the safety of the pedestrians walking, we can do better than this. Money was raised, given to the Tower of Hildebran to do the repairs to the tower, not to tear it down and build a new replica of the old tower. Donors gave money for tiles to honor our heritage.
3 minutes.
This tile needs to be in a proper place on the walls of the past, the original, our future heritage, the Hildebran Tower. Thank you for your time.
State your name and address, please.
Sir. First of all, I'm Harold Greenhill. I've resided at 320 South Spring Street for 41 years. I've been a residential commercial real estate developer for 32 of those years. Bear with me, I'm gonna talk real fast because I'm gonna cover 4.5 years and hopefully 3 minutes. I first got involved in this project in spring of 2017 after the litigation for 2 years from the HHDA to the town. I was asked be an intermediary to come and try to solve the problem. I came before the council, here are the notes I used in March of 2017. I shared a lot of information that night. My last request was, I asked that you direct the town manager to secure the professional services of an architect and an engineer to make sure that the breezeway, the tower, and everything was structurally sound and safe. Approximately a month after that, was correspondence between your attorney and HCA attorney. There was an offer made and it was accepted. It was conditional. If the town would preserve the tower, and the exact language says the tower, the breezeway, and the connecting wall in one correspondence would be saved if they would seek no further litigation to drop all appeals. There was agreement. There was a multiple series of correspondence, and some of the terminology was used to preserve the tower, the breezeway, and the supporting walls, plural. Keep this in mind because it's going to come up later and it's very important. In later 2017, the notes were on May, you actually, in your notes, it's documented, the agreement was this, that the debris could be cleaned up from the burnout, with the exception of the tower, and it's pretty much more correspondence must have taken place from April to May because now the stairwell was specifically stated. It says the tower, the stairwell, the breezeway, and the supporting walls, plural. About a year later, I was asked to join a group, put together a group of 6 to create a master plan. It made no sense to do anything in this tower without knowing what was going to go on around it. We asked for, and I asked for a survey because I knew being a developer, the first thing you start with is a good survey. You got to have a good foundation. I asked for a survey to include topography, location of structures, location of utilities, everything we need to do good, solid, sound work. You agreed, you ordered a survey in August. It should have taken 60 days. It took 5 months. In January, that survey was complete. It was handed over to our group. We started meeting in January of 2019. And we worked really hard every other week and monthly down through that period for 7 months. We came to you in July of 2019. We said we need money to present you a presentation, a color drawing, a draft, so you can see what we were attempting to produce and what the work that had gone into it. We asked for $4,000 and you agreed. I have an invoice. We spent $905. You still have the rest. You see, this is not just a pretty conceptual drawing. It's not a watercolor. It's a good sound work. You can go from this and use and have the structural drawings made to do that. I gave a report in June of 2020. Here are my notes. I spoke for approximately an hour. I'm gonna tell you, I tried to encapsulate 18 months in an hour. 4.5 years in 3 minutes is a lot harder, trust me. The final request I made, my second request was the group, our group. We said, would you please secure the structural engineer to test the integrity, the structural soundness, and the safety of this structure. Later, also there was agreement made to share in the costs. HHDA raised $500,000. You know all of that. I won't bore you with that. But anyway, in November of 2020, you did not hire a structural engineer. You hired an architect, Mr. Mackey, who just spoke. Later on in April, you hired a contractor. That brings me to this report, the SKA report. It's where I'll make a few important points. I don't know what happened in June.
30 seconds.
I don't know what happened in June. But this report basically is first of all, it's partially false. In all due respect to Mr. Mathgate. And in the first paragraph, it says he did not perform any testing. At that point, the rest is irrelevant. The conversation you already had with them is enough time spent. There's no way you make a decision to turn this tower based on this report. You're gonna still need a structural engineer and test the integrity of the foundation and anything else that goes with it. I'm gonna ask you to make do two things. One, you've got to reassure the public that you're not headed down a path to basically try to take this tower down because you're in breach of contract if you do. You open yourself up to potential litigation of just that, a breach of contract. The second thing I would do is hire a structural engineer to do the testing necessary so that you can make an informed and educated decision. I would have done a much better job if I had a little more time. I'd be glad to discuss any of these issues with any of you. What I've given you is the truth, it's factual, it's verifiable. I appreciate your time.
Is
it Beverly Nichols?
Beverly had to leave. She takes care of an elderly person and they had to have their medicine, so she asked for me to speak on her behalf. I honestly don't know what Beverly was gonna say.
State your name and address, please.
This is Stephanie Higdon, 4183 Southwood Avenue, Pickering, North Carolina. And I don't know what Beverly was gonna say, but I imagine she would tell you that she wanted the tower saved. And I imagine it's pretty apparent by all the tiles that were sold that everybody wants the tower saved. But while I'm here, I have a few things I just want to say about stuff that happened at the last meeting. I've worked in construction over 25 years now, and things change all the time. Means and methods change, construction operations, everything changes, we know that. The one thing that has never changed in the 25 years that I've worked in construction is the sponsor or the owner of a project hires a contractor. At the end, when the contractor thinks he's done, they always think they're done. They get together with the owner and they come up with a punch list. That's the way it's done. It's the way it's always done. I see it every day. I do reports on it every day. And in the tower, we have a town manager whose job is to manage the town's projects that you vote on. That town manager refused to meet with the contractor to make a punch list. They basically wanted the contractor to come up with his own punch list. That's about the most asinine thing I've ever heard. Almost as asinine as hiring a contractor to do work on a building and then later hiring a structural engineer to determine if the building is safe. Thank you.
Dave?
Last one there was Beverly Nichols.
That concludes public comment.
Right. Okay, 7, old business. 7A, discussion of tower renovation project and structural engineer report. Does anyone have anything to say?
Well, I'll throw in a couple cents real quick. So, first of all, I know there was a lot of people that would speak today that couldn't be here because of COVID.
Yes.
We have people in this room that are still recovering from COVID, so, I'm empathetic to that. I think over the course of the last month, various members of this council have talked to people in town, out of county, out of state about this. I think everybody understands how important and passionate of a project this is. And I think that has never gone unnoticed. And I think it's also important to stress that over the course of the last 5 years, that multiple councils and administrations have voted unanimously, time after time after time again, with the intent on saving the tower. So I don't want all the spin and the emotion and the passion to cloud the simple fact that multiple administrations, multiple councils have voted unanimously to try to do something about this. I joked in the 4 years I've been sitting here that the government moves at the speed of never. It takes forever to do anything in the government, and that is extremely frustrating on a personal level. With that said, Harold Greenhill did a great job summarizing 4.5 years in 3 minutes. All right, he's spot on with pretty much everything he said in the time frame. It takes forever. We had a lot of stuff that happened in that time frame. Stairs fell, there was all kinds of stuff. With all of that said, I know we've had this information from the engineer for a month now, but we really haven't had an opportunity to have it presented, have questions answered, think about it. I know I've talked to every single person that has reached out to me, gave them my personal cell phone number, talked to them even when I'm at work and I didn't have time. I've made time because I know how important this is. My family even bought tiles for this, okay? So this hits on a lot of levels. But I think the important thing is, with whatever step we take with this, the garbage about that anybody wants to tear this tower down is nonsense. That's nobody, like I said, for the last 5 years, has ever wanted to tear this down. The intent is to save it. And I think the question that was brought up about what happened in June was the fact the work that was done because of the state when the stairs fell and we boarded it up, we couldn't lay eyes on it, couldn't get in the building, couldn't see what happened. When all that came off and all that stuff was pulled out, it's like it shone a light on what was going on. So the concern about the structural engineer, about all this other stuff going on, it wasn't that we were delaying doing anything about it. It was just we didn't have the opportunity because it was boarded up. And we did that on purpose when the stairs fell because we were trying to make it the bigger part of the part that we want to build around it. And so until we actually hired the contractor, pulled the boards off and started working, that's when we could see what was going on. So I just wanted to clarify that. But with that said, this is a very emotional project, and I think whatever step we take, we don't vote on that tonight. I don't think it's fair to the public. I don't think it's fair to the staff. I don't think it's fair to the council to make a motion tonight on what that next step is without taking 2 weeks to process, to do some more follow-up, find out what exactly is going to have to be done. I mean, we hired the SK engineer. It wasn't to do a full structural analysis. It was just kind of give us just the highlight. What he's actually asking is for us to spend another $4,000 or so to do a more in-depth version. And what I'm saying is, before we decide to spend any money, before we decide to do anything else, I said cooler heads prevail because I know more people in the public want to reach out. I know if more people could have been here today, we've been sitting here at 3 a.m. listening to every single one of them. And I think it's just important that we take a couple of weeks. Now, with that said, we have financial responsibilities that we owe Little Builders and Icon Architecture. I think we definitely discussed that tonight. I think as far as HHDA, the council has already stressed multiple times the amount of money that they raised was for an intent to put the tiles in the tower. And I think until we decide what to do, obviously we'll take that into consideration. I mean, the intent was never for us to get them to raise money and we just pocket it. I mean, that would be stupid. That's illegal. We would never do that. But if we decide to proceed to continue the preservation of it, we obviously use it. If we decide not, we don't know what that's going to look like. So I say we wait a couple weeks before we take action on that part of the money, but I think we need to do something with Little Builders and with Icon Architecture, close that out, figure out what to do. And that's my 2 cents. I can't breathe.
I'm kind of like you. I don't know if anybody said anything about tired of now. I don't know where these people get this
It
information.
was never said.
I'm getting tired of getting attacked, thinking I'm wanting to tear the tower down. I don't know if anybody in here said anything about it.
no, we did, you know, we've definitely had some heat over it, and I think it is a passionate issue, and it's like anything else, we're trying to
I was,
rehab it into, either rehab it or rebuild it into something that's gonna be something that'll stay here for another 100 years, 150, whatever that, the next generation's around, so, I think Nicole's right, I don't think anybody in here, you know, going to this school, and Alice and I growing up here, I mean, I can look at that tower, still have a flashback, so it does have memories, but, you know, it's, we definitely need to make it safe and sound for the next generation of people that's gonna be on these grounds, so, you know, what that looks like.
I agree with that. I was going by the work, wasn't done the way it's probably done or whatever. I was just trying to protect everybody's money, but evidently it's okay with that money. I don't know.
Yeah,
I was just trying to protect people that did invest in it.
right, I agree.
If it's all right with them, I mean, so, but I ain't never said I was gonna tear it down.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, one question I had too is, you know, there was questions brought up about contracts and previous agreements from years ago and everything. And so I have a question for Redmond, you know, and this doesn't have to be answered tonight, but I'm just curious, you know, with what was presented, how that can tie in. And I guess we probably need to have more information, I guess, by the next time we do a meeting on that, on, you know, how that means if we proceed or with whatever it is.
I agree, I have to go back and research things. I'm not sure what contract Greenhill is talking about. The town oftentimes talk with HHDA members about if it is structurally sound, we would attempt to preserve the town. We say that over and over and over again. And that still is the issue, I think, before the town council.
Yeah, I mean, it's 100% a safety issue for me, and I think, you know, the engineer did stress, despite, you know, minimal testing and everything. I mean, if a wall's cracking, the wall's cracking. If you can't find the foundation or whatever, if you're not sure the stability of it, I mean, that's what it is. I mean, you don't have to test. You can eye test that. You know, and I think I think what this did today is ask more questions than what we got answers, although I do think there were some very, very big answers that were given, but I still feel like there's more information that we need to get out of it. But I still feel like safety is always going to trump money. You know, at the end of the day, you know, if he's talking about the left side wall is going to fall towards the gymnasium, we're talking about kids. We're talking about a park put around this. We're talking about, you know, cruises. Cruise-ins. We're talking about all kinds of stuff. And I mean, that to me is more important, because if a side of that building falls off or something, I mean, we're talking millions of dollars of lawsuits. And we are not a town of size that can absorb that, no matter how much insurance we pay.
How tall is the tower? 50 feet?
We're gonna have to figure that out. I believe it's in excess of 48. I do know that, but
So you're talking
believe
about
it's
falls
64.
over 75 feet. You draw a circle around that thing 75 feet, it falls over the bricks.
That's right.
That's a pretty large area.
It was a very smart decision that council voted to close that parking lot off.
Absolutely.
Well, what about a second opinion? Is SKA, are they experts in historical buildings, or are they just engineers in general?
We were referred to them by McGill Associates. McGill Associates.
They're
Yes.
very reputable.
They're the ones in Hickory. They referred to them out of Asheville, saying that anytime they do work throughout the state with older buildings, this is the company to go with.
What about a structural engineer? I mean, can they?
No, SK, yeah, so Chris Bathgate, he is a structural engineer. They did not do what you would call structural analysis on this, they did do that. He has stated to me that a couple things that trump that are, it was never built to be a standalone structure. That makes it very difficult to even be deemed structurally sound. Used to have the support, as he mentioned, on 3 different sides that you no longer have. Not to mention you've got to change in use. That kicks in some requirements at the county level. It was mentioned by someone that it was registered as a utility building. However, the paperwork we were given was applied for an educational occupancy. And we actually got that from the attorneys from Well Builders. So yeah, you could go forward with it. I just think he kind of feels like the reason his company doesn't want to do it is they already know the outcome of the structural analysis. So you're paying on the.
Well, the other thing too is, I mean, even if we pay $4,000 for structural analysis, which I'm not saying we don't do, but even if you pay it, I don't think it's gonna make the current situation any better, cheaper, whatever. I think it's just gonna pinpoint exactly what needs to be done.
It's probably gonna make it more expensive.
And exactly, and to the point where, where he's ballparking $250,000, 400,000, whatever astronomical number he wants to put out there, I don't want it to be lost that he's basically saying you're putting a birdcage around it. I mean, that makes it sound like it's gonna be the most, it's gonna completely change the look of it. I mean, no matter how you feel about it, that just.
This thing out, it's not gonna be the tower, it's gonna be,
It's gonna be I mean, it's kind of like the metal stuff, I guess we have on top of the gym, but it's gonna be a lot more than that. And it's gonna be around it, and so I feel like, that's a lot of money for 3 people in a building to be inside of a cage. I mean, that's my gut thought, but like I said, I mean, this is a really passionate project, and of course, the council's voted unanimously every time to consider reserving it, take steps towards that, and it's taken a long time with a lot of challenges and COVID and everything else. But I think at the end of the day, again, that's a decision I don't think we need to make lightly and jump too quickly to today. I do think, Logan said on an email in regards to, with Lell Builders, and I think my concern is, I understand the concerns about the punch list and everything. So the deal with the punch list, there was an informal punch list with communications, and council had emailed to Logan, and there was back and forth, but I don't want to get into that. The point is, I think once the work, when significant completion, or whatever you want to call it, was reached, we realized that the total project scope was going to be more than what we budgeted, and that there were some more problems that we solved than what we thought were going to be solved. And so I think at the end of the day, Logan, I saw where you sent an itemized list of an invoice for payment. I think at this point, because it sounds like from what the engineer said, even if we go through the process of structural analysis or whatever, we're gonna have to have somebody specialized in the mortar and all of that to do the work. So I think at this point, what it sounds to me, and I'm gonna speak for myself, but it sounds like the scope of work is gonna be bigger than just letting Lell Builders do a manual punch list. So I say we just go ahead and pay them with the itemized statement they've got, and call their work done. And if that means that we need to pay Mackie as well. And then at this point, we figure out what that next step is, who we need to contact, get names of specialized whatever, whatever we need to do, whatever we decide to do. But I think we at least need to go ahead and consider that part closed.
No, and I would recommend paying them as the structural engineer mentioned. We can let them finish the work they're doing, but the work they're doing is actually hurting and damaging the tower. So it would be my professional opinion that you go ahead and
Let's go ahead and pay them.
yeah, pay them, because whatever you're gonna do to that tower is gonna be well.
Stop the bleeding.
Sound like you're
Stop
gonna
the
have to
bleeding.
we're gonna have to redo some of it anyway. I mean, if the structural engineer says so, I have to redo some other stuff,
So they
so.
don't need to go back in and touch anything else with that building.
Well, again, it's a safety issue for them as well.
Right.
Exactly.
So with I had a chance, because I got the email when I was driving from Marion, is the itemized statement that they sent, does that satisfy all of our requirements whenever we have to make any payment from a government standpoint, as far as receipts, all that kind of stuff?
Technically, yes. I mean, it meets everything that we would need. It's not the most detailed report. Essentially, what he's giving you is the value that he assigns to the work. He's not giving you, for example, the material cost, his profit margin. I did look back in the contract. When they did give the bid of $41,000, the profit margin was 5%. So he had a profit margin of about $2,050 when he bid the contract. He does go through permits, 500, demolition 6,000, masonry repair allowance 6,000, wood framing 2,000, The roofing, gutter, and coating, 15,000, equipment rental, 5, and then labor and supervision, 6,500.
So if we approve to go ahead and pay the 41,000, that will have Well Builders taken care of. And,
I'm making you up.
well,
That would be another 9 or 9.
that was gonna be my next question is, do we have to make a separate motion to approve that?
Yes.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve payment for Well Builders out of, was it 41,000?
Yes.
I'll say,
So, budget amendment.
Just go in.
Call for vote.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes.
Terry, yes.
Derek, yes.
Sorry, Ben, we had you, turn down.
You still there?
Did you hang up on him?
Try it one more time. Ben? He said yes. I don't know if you could hear him, but I could. I don't know why. The volume is all the way up. I don't know what the deal is.
Wake up, Ben.
Someone's got to call me, Ben, wait.
One more time.
Okay, yes.
All right, and then I'll make a motion to approve payment to Eichert Architecture in the amount of $9,000.
I'll call for vote.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes.
Terry, yes.
Derek, yes.
Ben, yes.
Now, with Mackey being paid, is his services done, or do we still need him for whatever the next step? I mean, I'm just curious what that's gonna be.
No, at this point, if we were to proceed with any other renovations, I would pursue
Bidding
someone
process.
else. Yes.
Okay.
All right, any more discussion on the tower?
I guess the last thing is, should we go ahead and schedule a special meeting in like 2 weeks? I know that's Labor Day week. But I can propose Thursday the 9th. And we don't have to do it as late. We can do it earlier if that works for y'all.
So September,
September the 9th.
I will be in Oklahoma, so I'll be able to, I can't do that.
I will be on vacation too.
Okay. What about the following week?
I'm good. I fly back on Sunday the 12th, so I'm really good on that.
So what are you talking about?
I could do any day the week of the 13th through the 17th. Friday 17th would be preferable, but I mean, for an earlier meeting, but I could do 7:15 any other day.
I'm gonna be gone the 4th through the 18th, so somebody else can run it. You can run the meeting.
Oh, fun.
And we can have council members call in, we would prefer to at least have 3 here, just preferably, but yeah, if you need to call in.
Yeah, 13th through 16th works. Up to 17th. I'm not anything on Fridays, yeah.
What day of the week is that?
13th is gonna be a Monday, Ben, and 13th is Monday, 14th is Tuesday. of
I
course.
don't like the
It'll
13th.
work out better for me.
I can't do it the 13th. I'm in the town council meeting that night.
Go what day? Red?
I can't do the 13th.
I can do the 13th. So Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, what works
Can
best?
you do the 14th?
Tuesday,
Tuesday?
See, that's good for you, Ben?
yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Tuesday, the 14th at 7:15.
Is that good with you guys?
Sounds good.
Good, okay.
Yeah, 7:15.
Put that in a motion, please.
I make the motion to call a special meeting on Tuesday, September the 14th at 7:15 PM in the council chambers.
Remote.
Special purpose to discuss, further discussion on the tower.
Yes.
I call for a vote.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes.
Terry, yes.
Derek, yes?
Ben, yes.
Okay. 7B, consider approval of resolution for building reuse application for Project Husky 2 Synergy Labs.
Yes, so this is Synergy's second request for funding. They are requesting the maximum amount of $500,000, with the town of Hildebran providing a minimum 5% cash match. That's what is written in the authorized resolution. However, it is my understanding that the county will be matching half of that 5%. So instead of 25,000, we would be at 12.5. So if I were you to vote to approve that, I would vote to approve it with the condition the county does match our half of the 5%.
I'll make the motion to approve with the condition that the county match half.
Call for a vote.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes.
Jerry, yes.
Eric, yes.
Ben, yes.
Okay. 7C, discussion of fall festival.
Yes, so we have attempted to meet several times. We have yet to have a sit down with Calvin Reyes and I forget the name of the project coordinator he's got. However, we have not had time to meet yet, but the biggest concern that we have, and it's actually going to go into some of the other things tonight, is the rising COVID cases. So maybe a good discussion to start here is we both have a discussion of the fall festival, and then later we're going to have the community yard sale and the Christmas craft show. Staff would just like to know what council's opinion is right now of all the events coming up, given the COVID numbers. And I'll plan to go through those later, but I can do that now if it helps.
Well, I think what the biggest thing about COVID that we need to also remember too is even though there was a flu last year, we are starting to get cold and flu season. Flu shots are just now starting to get into the market. So there's going to be a lot of respiratory stuff. So I think it's going to need to take into consideration more than just COVID.
How does council feel about proceeding, at least at this moment, with the fall festival and potentially then a craft show and Christmas?
I think with the fall festival, we're running out of time, especially since we haven't had an initial sit down. To put together a successful fall festival in 2 months, that's not, I don't think, ideal. As much as I wish we could have all our events going on, personally, I can tell you this, COVID sucks.
I think we just need to put it on hold right now and just see. But at this point, you don't have a lot of time left to do anything.
Well, and we
And
did.
change the parking lot.
Right, we got the parking lot still shut off, so we can't,
That's true.
So I think I'll support whatever.
Yeah. I mean, especially with the parking lot and with the health stuff, I mean, there's just, the logistics just.
Much risk.
And then the rest of it, I guess we can just play it by ear, the Christmas style. Depends on what happens, you know what I'm saying?
Right. We normally do need about, a 2-month lead time?
I normally start in July.
Yeah,
Now
that's
it's
the yard
pushed
sale.
out into Christmas and the community yard sale now. It's not that very little time, we only got 4 months
Yeah.
for Christmas.
I don't think the yard sale's gonna work. I don't think the fall festival's gonna work. Obviously, we can't do any cruise-ins right now. Which, wouldn't they be done anyway?
Let's see, August, September.
Was it?
I believe so. I think, yeah, maybe August was the last one.
Okay, because I think usually we did the festival in September. So,
The festival was
The festival
in
is
September.
Labor Day, so we can do fireworks. That's our festival, we used to.
I mean, I feel like everything except the Christmas craft show right now kind of needs to be put on hold. And then next month, we kind of revisit Christmas.
It's fair,
That would work.
it's fair.
All right, new business, 8A, fiscal year 2020 and 2021 audit review, Eric Bowen. All right, we need some good numbers.
I just feel like we're honest.
You still awake here?
Yeah, good nap, never.
He was there early too.
Yeah.
Y'all need some good news.
Here it is.
had just an outstanding audit this year. If you've got your schedules, I've just got a couple things, just want to talk about fund balance a little bit. First schedule, we've got exhibit 4, the statement of revenues and expenditures. The revenues were 1.2 million, expenditures 925,000, bringing up to an increase in the fund balance of 282,691. Last year, we had an increase of 207,000, so adding those two together, we've almost added $500,000 fund balance over the last 2 years. So you've had outstanding 2 years in a row. That brings our fund balance down to just under 3.2. And if you'll flip over to exhibit 3, page 15, about the only thing you need to look at is that first column, cash and cash equivalents, $2,864,000. So out of that $3.1 million fund balance, 2.9 is unrestricted cash. So you can't be in much better shape than that. I'm gonna break down that fund balance just a little bit on the next page, just so you know what your unrestricted is. So if we start out with the total fund balance, general fund, $3.1 million, then we have some items that will have to back out of that. The $60,000 is how built funds that we haven't spent yet. The $101,000 is just a working capital requirement. The WC doesn't let you appropriate your receivables. Economic development, $245,000. That's money that you put back for many years for it's in your EDC fund. And then next, a little bit of an unusual item for you guys, appropriated fund balance in the next year's budget. So that you've decided that it's going to take about $388,000 to balance next year's budget, which is quite all right. The next thing, I guess, is the biggest thing we can talk about is your internal fund balance policy is 150% of expenditures, or almost $1.4 million. That's really a large amount for an internal policy. Most of my clients use 3 to 6 months, and that's about 18 months. But nevertheless, after backing that out, what you got is totally unrestricted fund balance is almost $1 million, $988,000. So you've got plenty of money to use on capital projects.
We're very sound.
Absolutely.
Maybe
So
the town-
don't get tied up on that big $3 million number. We got about $1 million.
Oh, that's the main thing.
Okay.
And then just a couple other real quick things. Our tax collection rate was 99%. This is all in your stuff here. We had no budget over expenditures. Town has no debt, which is unusual. And it is an outstanding financial position. And Rick just informed me that y'all received about $320,000 of ARPA funds. So you can add that to this $1 million then to reduce the project. So done a great job. There's just no negatives to talk about really. If you got it, I know that was quick. If you got any questions, I'll try to answer them.
No, good job.
Wow, thanks for the good piece.
I think I'll need some left.
Oh, yeah, we did. Appreciate it.
We appreciate this job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. You always do a wonderful job. Appreciate it.
I will do that.
Okay, 8B, wait, we need to vote on accepting his,
We need to set the budget.
okay.
Make a motion to accept the audit.
All right, I call for a vote.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes.
Jerry, yes.
Derek, yes.
Yes.
Okay, 8B, presentation from Rusty Burton, Senior Accountant, Executive, Contura Networks, switching to fiber internet.
Yes, so Rusty had planned on attending our last meeting, so he could not attend tonight. Essentially what we're seeking from council, he has come by and offered us fiber internet. They would pay for the line to be run from 70 to the town and incorporate into that into our monthly price. Currently we pay about $369 to Spectrum for our internet phone services. The major upside to fiber would be increased speeds for video. I do think our current speeds are fine. We have no issue with the office with this. What I want to see from council, if they have an appetite for fiber, again, most of the other towns who have fiber have police departments, fire departments, other larger units. It would be an immediate $30 increase per month. We go from $369 to $399 for the fiber. The biggest issue for us is we have to be able to retain our emails. Switching over to this service, what it doesn't do is it doesn't give us a domain host for our email. So we may have to spend money additionally each month. To do that, we're looking into it. We want to talk to a few people before. Basically, if council is okay with that, we can move forward with looking into it more to see what all we would need to accomplish to make sure that we can retain everything and keep it and provide it each month. However, just know that it would be a slight increase in cost. If that's something you're comfortable with, we can move forward. If it's something you'd like to get more info on before we vote, we can do that as well.
I mean, it sounds like we don't even really need it. Paying an extra $360 a year just sounds like a waste, at least at this time.
That's fine.
Do we need to vote or take no action?
Either one, either vote no or take no action.
I'll make a motion to vote no.
I call it for a vote.
Yes to no?
Yeah, yes to your motion.
Cole, yes to the motion to vote no.
Mike, yes.
Gary, yes.
Derek, yes.
And yes.
Okay, 8C, consider approval of budget amendment for price increase in recycling services.
Okay, yeah, if you will turn to to 8C, that is the budget amendment we need. We received a notification from Simply Green that our cost per household will be going from $8 per household to $10. That's going to take our monthly cost somewhere around $2,800 to $3,500.
What more will you get?
You do not get anything in addition.
Okay, well, when they pick up trash, and they dump it over the truck or all that stuff, it should be clarified to get out and pick it up, put it in the truck.
This is the recycling.
Yeah, this is Simply Green. Now, I will say this.
Oh, recycle, I thought you were talking
Yeah, no,
about.
this
No, it's recycling.
Well,
We'll
get to that next. Hold on.
no, and do keep that in mind. So right now we have about 370. It's more of a subscription-based service with Simply Green. They provide 2 13-gallon containers they pick up every other week. So that's what you're getting for your $3,500. It is subscription-based. We do have some costs could go up a little bit, but we kind of low out about $355. So what I did is I did ask for Public to provide us at least a quote for the services. They do not do subscription-based services. They would just go ahead and include all 750 residents that they do pick up for waste collection now. They normally run a price of about $525 to $550 per card. So what that would work out for us is about $39.37 per month. So it's going to be about $400 a month higher than Simply Green. You do double your customer base, so they do go ahead and incorporate everyone, but it is $400 a month, about $5,000 a year more expensive.
And Logan, when was the last increase?
I've not experienced one through Simply Green since I've been here. So I don't know.
Ben, I feel like there was an increase at some point during our term, but I feel like it's been a couple of years. Probably been 2 or 3 years, so, I mean, it's 20%, but, or 25%, but still cheaper.
Stay with the cheap.
Wasn't that due to new owners? Wasn't that due to the change of owners?
Yeah, they had a new ownership 2 years ago when we started a 2-year contract.
Yeah, I think that was why.
So the price increased 2 years ago because it changed the contract with new owners.
Yeah.
So it's been 2 years, so we probably will have another increase for another 2 years.
It would be a 2-year agreement, but we can determine if they'll ask for an increase in 2 years.
So we just go ahead and approve it. It's either that or go with a more expensive person, or cancel it. I feel like people use it.
Yeah.
Alright, I'll make a motion to approve budget then.
All right, call for a vote.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes.
Gary, yes.
Derek, yes.
And yes.
Thank you. Consider 8D, consider approval of COVID relief grant fund grant ordinance.
Okay, yes, this simply gives the town the ability to expend the COVID funds. We were given $640,581.86. So this resolution just allows us to appropriate all of the money towards COVID. Obviously, we have to follow the guidelines and the regulations of the ARP funds, but this would allow us to extend those funds, which we currently don't have the ability to do.
Make a motion to approve the green ordinance.
Call it for a vote.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes.
Gary, yes.
Derek, yes.
Ben, yes.
All right, 8E, we've already talked about, and I guess we just tabled the Christmas show discussion
The next one.
till next month, okay. 8F, July, August facilities report.
It's there for review.
It's in the package, okay? 8G,
Let me go back to the facilities report. Why does it sound like we're always fixing soap dispensers? I mean, every single month it's on there, somebody knocking them out. There, every time there's always fixed soap dispensers. Do we just get cheap ones or we got some thugs?
No, we do have quality soap dispensers. That was one of the things we did replace throughout the entire, 3 or 4 facilities, with our first batch of COVID funds, the FFCRA funds. I cannot tell you why we're fixing them every month, but I can tell you we do have wear and tear. Throughout the,
Sounds like we got $320,000 about some more.
640.
We need to put a birthday on our.
Alright.
But you gotta watch the poll. It's like I say, oh man, automatic dispensing, he's hitting green light. I hit him with his fist hard as kids say, they pop off, all you gotta do is put your hands in there. They were just,
Yeah. That probably the promotion for you, so. That substance is that.
all right, 8G, June, July tax reports. That's in your packet. Okay. 8H, consider approval of 2020 tax supplements.
So each year, the tax collector has to provide a settlement for the previous year's taxes. Yeah. So Danny Eisenhower provided his settlement, and then I provided the one for the delinquent taxes through 2017. So we do need a motion for approval for both of those.
Make the motion to approve.
Call for a vote.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes.
Gary, yes.
Derek, yes.
Ben, yes.
8I, order for tax collector to collect property taxes for 2021 and 2017 and all prior years.
So each year, the tax collector is also needs an order to collect the taxes. So Danny would get one for 2021, and then I would get one for previous years. So we need a motion for that.
I'll make a motion for the order.
All right, call for a vote.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes.
Gary, yes.
Derek, yes.
Ben?
Ben, yes.
Okay. 8J, June, July deputy report. Deputy Tower is not here. However, we do have a deputy here. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Looks like he's getting busy.
Technically, I'm his supervisor, so I should be able to shoot away.
All right. It's in your packet, so, okay.
Looks like you guys are getting busier. Is that the kind of the?
I mean, the sheriff's office as a whole has been here, especially, with, staffing down, and this involves enforcement in general, not just a county issue. But, it's becoming increasingly difficult.
Did y'all get called out on the subtle thing? I know Brian was with you.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm glad nobody got hurt.
Yes,
That guy was digging. Yeah, yeah. What else, so?
All right, 8K committee reports. Technical coordinating committee,
Yes, so not much in the way of transportation. However, we were allotted in one of the recent House budgets, $80,000. This money was gonna be for, one of two trails for the town of Hildebran, either a connection from somewhere within the town limits to, the north end of town at the river, the lake. So this would be connected to the Berg or Catawba River Trail. Or the second option would be for the town to connect to the Wilderness Gateway Trail. So there are two trails coming near the town of Hildebran. We talked about this a couple months ago. So one of the bad things about it was these budgets did not get passed. It was put in as an amendment, however, it did fail in the Senate. So we may or may not get some funds. It may be that amount, it may be a different amount. I will say this. In the amendment that was presented, there were 4 Berg County municipalities who got 25,000. Longview got 10 to connect to one of these two same trails. Roadkiss was given 60, and then Hildebran was given the most at 80,000. The Western Piedmont Council of Governments was given, at least in this iteration, a $325,000 allotment. This would have been to administer a large portion of the project for the municipalities. So again, that did not pass yet, but it's something to keep our eye on in case.
It sounds like the admin money is almost as much as the gift money.
More.
I just noticed that part of it.
Anyway, it's just a report for now. I'll update you if we do get any allotment in one of the future budgets, assuming they get passed at the state level.
So the THC meeting is actually this Wednesday. And Logan, in the agenda, it was talking about scoring for STIP, I guess. Are any of our $5 million worth of sidewalk projects that we got in plan, Wilson Road and all that stuff, is any of that in that STIP?
So the STIP is a larger project. Our two fundings are coming from LAP and SPOT.
Okay.
So the larger plan, yes, we're probably included, but I can get you more information on that.
I couldn't remember if one of them was going through STIP or SPOT. There's too many acronyms. So one person earlier today mentioned about the sidewalks. I want it to be reminded, because we have a lot of captive audience right now, that yes, we have submitted roughly $5 million worth of sidewalk and road improvement plans within the last year to the North Carolina Department of Transportation that are in various phases in at least 3 different projects. And with that said, the point that was brought up about the current condition of some of the sidewalks being in disrepair, I think is something we also need to look into, especially after the audit and all that stuff. We need to repair, not just always build new.
No, and I will say this to her comment. One of the things that we hope for in a new full-time person is more attentive maintenance to the existing sidewalks. One of the jobs and responsibilities of that person will be, as they are out edging and spraying the sidewalk, is to take some conditions, at least in spots, to kind of come back to us and let us know if there's any attention that needs to be paid to certain spots throughout town.
That's just like over at my house. They've never come out and looked at it.
No, well, I will say this, certain places are DOT. I know that. But anyway, no, any town streets, obviously, any town sidewalks, that is something we'll look at. And we can even make DOT aware, again, of any issues that we have. I will say that they are under a constrained budget. Things that were, like we talked about, the interchange or the exit 118, that was on a 2-year plan, now it's on a 9-year plan. That's something I was gonna bring up in other business. We can discuss that now. So DOT, currently, their plan for exit 118 is to have several roundabouts. That is gonna impact, I believe, a church and a gas station that are nearby. What they are asking, they're essentially wanting council's input. So what they would rather do, instead of doing those roundabouts and impacting those properties, is there are 3 other options. One, they route all the traffic to South Center Street. That's not what we want. This is our downtown area. We're trying to put parks, kids. So then they propose 2 other alternate options. One is to build a new road. It would come through, I believe it's Moose Holdings. it's the Elk Products
Yeah.
area, yes. So that would be a completely new street, it would come with a sidewalk. It would run from 70 to Main Avenue. Then they would get on Main Avenue and then get on exit 118 for truck traffic. The other option is they redo, I believe it's 3rd Street. It would be widened and improved for truck traffic. There's quite a few residential homes there, so I don't advise that one.
Now, where is 3rd Street?
Or 3rd Street or
Right there on
3rd.
the other side of Espy's coming down beside B and B.
Yeah, should have.
I just don't think that's a good idea there.
Residential there.
I don't think that's a good idea for driving.
Other than
When I drive a truck, I think putting a new road in is. the
Yeah, I
way
think
to
the
go.
new road would be a better option.
Okay, so
It would impact a whole lot less people.
if we were to rank them of the 4 options, we would probably want the new road near Elk Products, or we would want the 2 roundabouts out the exit.
Well, with the roundabouts, you said that would affect the gas station and the church, that would probably take up their parking lot and affect that business.
No, and again, it's not our most favorable option.
It doesn't come up that roundabout, what's been on crack.
Absolutely.
That's
Your
the same way I've seen it.
Absolutely.
So I do think that the roundabouts would be better than displacing or messing with the residents, because we already know the DOT's history with right-of-ways in the state.
Okay, well, so just as a consensus, would council prefer the new street?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would, absolutely.
That's all I got.
Well, and then going back to the sidewalk part just a minute ago, all that kind of goes back into the master plan that we were trying to create with just the whole town in general, the pedestrian master plan, as far as modernizing streets and sidewalks, there's been plans trying to get all of that stuff taken care of. So I just wanted to go back to the citizens' comment about that again, that's not something that we've looked over, but I do think that it is important for the next council to take that into consideration to do something about it.
All right. WPCOG Policy Board Delegate.
Yeah, we talked about workforce development, more appointments, urgent repair program, policy adoption. Then they had the amendment on the budget. Biggest thing was where Anthony got up and talked about the Western Piedmont College assessment and strategic plan update. And the census, they're gonna have a workshop next week. He said be prepared to work.
Our census didn't turn out too good.
No, and before I report on that, I did send that out to council, but I would like to verify all the numbers first, and then I was planning to discuss it at the next meeting.
Okay. Growth Economic Development.
Emailed you guys this afternoon and, unless you got some of Redmond, so they didn't discuss a whole lot of what's not at the meeting, so but you should have an email copy.
Recreation and Tourism,
That's 2 report.
Water Resource Committee, aesthetic,
Was unable to attend the last meeting, we actually meet Thursday.
Library Board, we didn't have a meeting this month. Okay. Other business?
We continue to hear remarkable comments throughout the entire county about the library building down here. How great you lie, how people are excited about it. That might be the very best thing in my lifetime here working, the working has ever done for the thing. It has been a really remarkable achievement for the citizens. One along over there.
That's what we call a segue.
I do have 2 things. Number 1, Senior Appreciation Day. So we were requested by Mrs. Bova, the Assistant Director for Burke County Senior Services, an increase, potential increase for the next allotment for Senior Day. They did have, I believe it says here, 215 RSVPs. Which normally we give them $700. I don't think she has an exact amount in mind, but she would like to see an increase at some point, if possible.
Do you know how many I can't remember if I saw it in here, but do you know how many seniors they usually have?
She didn't say, but she was not expecting anywhere near 215.
I want to say normally it's in about the 80 to 100 range. That's what it sounded like.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if we need them to give us a number or if they want us to throw out a number. But with everything going on, I mean, I don't see why giving them anything less than $2,000 would make any sense. Because, I mean, that's, you know, if we give $700 and I mean, they're gonna have that many people and as big a thing as that senior center does for this end of the county and for this town, it is a huge resource for us. And even if they don't use all of those funds, it will go back into this community in multitude ways.
Where do they get their barbecue lunch? I mean, they get it from somebody in
I'm not sure, but I did just read, it said in 2019, they had 80. And they weren't able to do it in 2020 due to COVID, so they got 215 this year. So she was asking to see if we could do anything this year, and then also if we could increase our budget for
Yeah, I mean, I
the
don't see
upcoming budget.
What do you think, 2,000 increase or 2,000 total?
I'm thinking, well, I mean, we're doing 700 total, so I would say 2,000 total. But, I mean, that's just me throwing.
They do a lot for seniors, you know, I'm all for that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, their numbers on the street, you know, so, I mean, I feel like that's significant.
Yeah.
And again, it's in town, it benefits a lot of people that need a
That
lot
one,
of
they
people.
were,
Oh, yeah.
budgeted in those for.
So for 1,300, right?
Do I need to make that a motion?
Yep.
All right, I'll make a motion to increase to a total of $2,000 for this year. Do we need to consider anything for next year at this time?
And we can do that in budget.
Okay, we'll do that at budget.
So we need a $1,300 budget amendment.
$1,300 budget, yes.
All right, call it for a vote.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes.
Terry, yes.
Derek, yes.
Yes.
Any more other business?
I would like to ask the council to approve amending the golf cart ordinance where we got it on Main Avenue West. You can't have golf carts, or we could use them at least to 3rd Street at SB Hardware, that road cut off. And you're not going on 240, because you're still not as far, as close to 40 there as you are when you just cross. If you come out to Main Avenue East to the bank. I'm asking if they'd amend that to where we could cross it, go out Main Avenue West to 3rd Street.
Main Avenue East,
Main Avenue West.
okay.
So we're not all,
Okay.
golf carts not right, according to the way it was road, we're not allowed on Main Avenue West.
In other words, you can go to SB.
You go to SB Hardware or down to B&B or whatever, but you're not getting any closer to the interstate.
What's the speed limit on that road?
I believe it's 35, yeah.
Yeah, it's 35.
What's the limit on golf cart speed?
It's 35 for the gas station.
Is there any reason why we couldn't? Other than possible safety issue?
The main concern was 40 traffic. Yeah, it's up to council's halftime for it, but again, you are stopping at SV's and you are stopping at the street that goes down to B&B, so you are allowing people to get to additional businesses within town. I do not know the exact distance from that area to 40. That might be something that someone who's lived here a little longer, they could judge it, but you do allow, you know, the additional two businesses. We can look into it further if you want.
Should we just look into it and address it next meeting?
Do what?
Should we just have them look into it and address it at the next regular meeting?
It doesn't matter to me. I mean, I just, you know, it's just, I think it's less distance. If you come out Main Avenue East here, you're closer to Interstate 40, just coming to the end of the Main Avenue East. You're closer than you would be if you're at 3rd Street.
That's true.
Is there any safety issues you guys see with that?
No, I mean, you know, I worked here I was deputy for 4 years. You know, interstate traffic that you're talking about, I mean, it's the 2 gas stations, and then there's through traffic coming down to South Center anyway, so you're facing the same traffic issue. And South Center Street, you're still facing traffic coming on 19. Coming down the hit 70, go through long, cut through long. So it's the same thing.
So it's not gonna
It's not gonna affect, I mean, I would tell you, there's no difference. But you turn on South Center Street, being on South Center, and even out to the first gas station. I mean, it's 35. I mean, I've ran radar even recently, through here, and I mean, everybody's running pretty much, between 35 and 40.
Well, since the sheriff has no problem with it, I was gonna make it a motion to go ahead and include that. Or he can drive that, where the golf carts can go down there.
Extending the golf cart limits up to Third Street with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, based on that. Qualified golf carts. All right, call for a vote.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes.
Terry, yes.
Derek, yes.
Ben, yes.
All right. Anything else?
I have one more, I'm sorry to backtrack on you. The funds for the engineering that we talked about earlier, the 41 and the 9,000, I believe we rolled them into the current year budget, but I don't have the budget in front of me. And I was just gonna ask, on the off chance that it wasn't rolled forward, if you would go ahead and approve a budget amendment if needed in that amount.
Yeah.
I'm good. Go ahead.
Okay.
No, so we need to get a formal
Yeah, we need a motion to,
motion, but
I'll make the motion for a budget amendment if necessary, if it was not covered.
thank you.
All right, I'll call for a vote.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes.
Terry, yes.
Derek, yes.
Ben, yes.
Thank you.
You ready for closed session, or is there anything else?
hopefully it's a relatively quick short session.
Okay, anybody wanna make a motion?
I'll make the motion to go in closed session.
All right, I'll call for a vote.
Cole, yes.
Mike, yes.
Terry, yes.
Derek, yes.
Ben, yes.
All right.
Yeah, I was.